Hi, you're listening to Young Leaders Podcast, a show that inspires creatives and motivates you to make a meaningful impact in the world. My name is Filippo Bagarella, and I'll be your guide to success as we interview young leaders, selfishly asking them about their progress and the lessons in life they've learned so far. Because if they can do it, you can do it. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Nicoleta Savvidou.
Hello.
Hi!
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be talking about music and to share experience about it.
I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you.
So, I'm going to start with a question that I ask everybody.
Sure.
So, you know that our podcast is called Young Leaders Podcast, right?
Yes.
And my first question is, what is your definition of a leader?
That's a great question and I wasn't expecting that, so it's good. I think a leader is someone who is like an inspiring figure, someone who is like helping others somehow become the best version of themselves, while at the same time have the necessary skills and tools in order to somehow show how they are how they are different, for example, how they're how what makes someone inspiring, or what are the characteristics that we can call someone is like motivating others to achieve their goals. So I think a leader is not someone who shows authority or just boss you to say things to, or like, for example, like leadership is more like an ideal figure that you want through your who you are to inspire others to follow you, and then that's how you like earns people's respect as well, I think.
So this is a very common answer in part because everybody tells me it's about the others. It's
Right.
about lifting the others. It's about
Exactly.
making the others shine, and then you get to shine.
Super cheesy, but the truth.
No, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
If you think about it, when you're in an airplane, I hope it never happens to you, but if you're in a boat or an airplane
Mm-hmm.
and you have to evacuate, the last person to leave is the pilot.
True.
Always. He has to make sure that everybody left the craft before he does. And that is actually
I
protocol. So
exactly.
it's a
Exactly.
cheesy protocol, but it works.
It works, and I think is that how you somehow establish how, for example, what is the meaning of like a leader should put themselves above, below anyone, like, you know what I mean, is like the
To
most important
serve.
this, yeah, exactly. And I think that there is not just someone who is like, oh, everyone will like do everything for me because I tell them to do so, it's someone who, no matter what happens or what is like their job or their skill that they're working on, they will through their example inspire others or be a role model. And when we say a role model, doesn't necessarily mean that we should do always, the like to be in front or something, but it at the same time really helps and really cares to bring like the voice of his team or out somehow.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's very important, I think. Well, I hope you become a leader in some way, shape, or form.
Thank you.
So you're a pianist,
Yes, I am a pianist.
and my next question is, how did you start? How did you, or better, how did you discover the piano? Because if you think about it,
Right.
when we're young, you started when you were young.
Mm-hmm.
When we're young, we discover the instrument for the first time, and that is something special.
Right.
What was your experience?
So when I was a little girl, so first of all, I was born in Cyprus. So everyone is asking me, literally everyone is asking me, where is Cyprus? And it's just such a small island close to the Mediterranean, and we speak Greek. That's why I have this accent. So I started playing the piano when I was little because my mom wanted her little daughter to learn how to play the piano, speak French, and at the same time like dance ballet. So
A
in order to
princess,
please my
a full princess.
I know, right? So in order to make my mom's dream come true, I did all of them. Piano obviously was the one that I loved more. So one day my grandfather he saw me that I really loved this instrument, so he got me my first piano, and I was so excited. So I had like a national ceremony, like a celebrity event back in like home, and I had to play piano. So I was practicing my little folk Greek tune on the piano, and then I really discovered that I really love these instruments. And I had my brother who heard me, and he was like, "Oh, you actually can play." So I started like learning the piano from there, and I was taking piano lessons. But that was like the little story that
The
started.
spark.
Yeah, exactly. They were like, "Oh, you can play the piano," so.
So, not everybody realizes that the piano is actually a percussion. It's a
I
percussive
agree.
instrument.
I agree.
You agree with that? Because not
Yes.
everybody does. So, what do you think about that?
Well, there are two ways to see it. Like, piano is obviously a percussion instrument because, like, the hammers, practically the instrument is created to be like a percussion instrument. But I think what makes it like more important is that you're trying to change the physicality of the instrument by trying to shape it differently, and so you are trying to make the instrument sound like another instrument, which is more melodic by different voicings and all these things, which is I think is something we're against the nature of the piano. So for example, like when we are a struggle of many pianists is that how do we make the piano sound as like melodic, as more like smooth sounding as possible, but we sometimes tend to forget that it's a percussion instrument in like theory.
Okay, so you agree with the
I
fact that
agree. I totally agree.
you like that.
Sadly, but we are trying to change that.
Sadly, I think, well, you explained it very well. So, correct me if I'm wrong. It starts from a percussive instrument, but then you give it life
Exactly.
into a more melodic instrument. And if you think about it, the piano is probably the most famous instrument in the world.
I agree.
Not everybody knows what's a violin. When I used to be in middle school, and I started playing the violin seriously.
Yeah.
I had this case of my violin, which was not a big rectangle, but it was more of a like arrow shaped, more or less, and ovally arrow shaped. And everybody would ask me, "Is that a guitar?
Oh wow.
Is that a trumpet?" I'm like, "No, it's a violin." "What's a violin?" I'm like, "It's like a smaller cello." "What's a cello?" So
Wow.
so that was depressing. So I understand what you know. I think that the piano is one of the most famous instruments.
And we had to highlight something that all the like, especially because I think most of the music schools and everything, like despite your major instrument, you need to play the piano.
You need to know the piano.
And
Yeah.
it's, to be honest, not because I'm a pianist, but it gives you different possibilities. Like composers need to also know how to play the piano, and even the basic skills, so that you will see how like things are working, how you can voice ideas, or how you can like use in an orchestra setting through the piano, like an important like orchestration of a piece could be somehow minimalized in a piano score.
Story time. So when I had to study theory, like musical theory, so harmony, triads, non-triads, and all that.
Right.
I remember that I was struggling terribly at the beginning, but then my teacher, my piano teacher, because I had a piano and a violin teacher in high school,
Nice.
said, "I can explain you everything in 10 minutes, literally in 10 minutes." He sat me on a piano and it re-explained me everything on a piano. I understood everything immediately. Like,
I agree.
that's how easy it is, because probably the piano is the only instrument that shows you
Exactly.
from like a visual,
You can see it.
physical aspect
Exactly.
how theory is then brought into knowledge and into practice.
Exactly.
And
I agree.
and that is something that I think personally is missing, because most people feel scared, and I felt like that way, it was very depressing, but then the piano saved my life.
And well, the piano, okay, so it's easy to play the piano. For example, I used back in my high school, I graduated from a music school, but I had to like learn a secondary instrument as well, so I choose the flute. And I still remember, I am really sorry for my neighborhood. They probably heard me practicing how to how to like
Make
really
sound.
make a good sound. And I was practicing with just the head of the flute, not just the whole body of the flute. So I was just practicing to try to make this sound really nice, which we don't have this problem for any beginners on the piano, for example, because everyone technically can play the piano because you just play. But the difficulty is how you master it, or how you become really good in what you're doing.
Try to make it real.
Exactly. And just through that instrument to make your like voice heard, which I think is in every instrument the same way. There are difficulties in every instrument.
Definitely, but the piano, wow. Has everybody ever told you to change, um, your career, to change your path?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
How did you react to that?
Well, you know what? Especially when it comes to my professional life, I love to set my like goals, and I like to establish high goals, so that you are gonna work on yourself and become better and push yourself to become the best version of yourself, literally. So I went on a masterclass back home. Obviously, I'm not going to refer to names, but I went to a masterclass back home. I finished the masterclass. I mean, sometimes you play better than others. The other times, it's this is how it goes.
Different levels.
Exactly. So I played, and then he said to me, "You played really well. Congratulations. But you're such a young girl. Don't you want to try and do something different? Why would you like to go in such a rough industry? Music industry is like super competitive." And I was back then, I think I was like probably, I don't know, probably 16, 17. It was before me coming to the US. So, and I was like, well, I was thinking about it. Do I love this instrument? Do I love music? And I think I love music more than anything. And I could have done something else, but I decided consciously to follow music. And I think the most important thing is that when you do that decision that you want to devote yourself through this world, through this music world, then somehow you're becoming much more conscious about your decision. So anyway, I went and he said to me, and I was just watching him because I was little then. So I was just watching him. And I was literally thinking in my head, who are you to tell me what is my career path? Or who are you to define my future? Or who are you to judge me because of one performance? If that's not what I can give, like somehow in the world, or what I believe how much I love music, you know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
So it was like it was a story that I remember, and I said inside in my head, I was like, watch me achieving it. So yeah, I mean, it's just somehow being like super focused on what you want to do, and no matter, like, of course there are so many difficulties throughout the path and throughout the way. You just have to be determined to put the hours down, do the work that's necessary, and believe in yourself that you can do it. And I believe everyone can do it. Some of them may not give up because, for example, they're like too tired in their way, and that's also part of their decision. And some of them maybe, but it's not a bad or good thing. There is not such a thing. Is that some people deciding,
Even though they do sometimes make you feel
I
bad,
know,
they
I
gaslight
know.
you. Sorry,
Yes, of course.
one step back.
Yeah.
When you were talking about the industry, and I always try to talk about this
Right.
in the talks we do here, it's connected also to mental health mostly.
I know.
Because yes, it's a rough industry, but you can give the fault to the industry until a certain point, because the industry is made by people, and
agree.
it's the humanity in people that is lacking most of the time.
I agree.
Because we forget about music, we forget about creating something beautiful, and we start doing something that is just in order to achieve a recognition.
That's the wrong thing.
And that is what scares me. That is one of the reasons why I backed off from most of from a career of having to,
Perform all the
perform all the time,
Right.
put myself in front of juries in dark rooms.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
I totally think that the creative process of an artist stops when the artist believes that it's only about like a competition. Because you know what, maybe like part of the jury is maybe like for example, the professor who is part of the jury didn't have their coffee in the morning, or they didn't wake up in a good mood, or they didn't like some little, I mean, I'm telling you little things, for example, right now, that can affect someone's like how day, for example. And so it's like, it's very interesting to judge an artist, or an artwork, or a musical performance just because of three people in that they somehow through their career managed to be part of the jury.
But
you know what I mean?
does music have to be judged?
No, exactly.
Even though
It's so
that's
true.
weird though, because fun fact, it's been judged ever since.
Exactly.
Beethoven,
By his dad,
I
it's like that's how it started somehow.
but not only, but I mean even Vivaldi before that. You can trace it to the Gregorian chants. Everyone judges music. And the fact that it gets judged, I think that also opens up a new world, which is very political, bureaucratical, and based on so much BS.
Well, I totally, I agree with you, and it's that somehow it's like, I think music or the arts in general is an attractive topic for so many people. for politicians, for like is they were not gonna talk about music, but they are gonna go to a concert, and then critiques will come, and they will be like, I like this performance, I didn't like. Which, you know what? At the end of the day, you cannot please everyone. Everyone has a different taste. The only thing I think an artist should have is be honest with themselves and be honest with their artistry, because the audience will understand if you are honest with what you want, how you want to play, with how you want to shape a recital. Like the programming, it's not just playing the most important works, like playing Chopin, playing Bach, playing all these and just put them all in a recital program, and here we have like a concert. You know what I mean? Is you need to actually, I've been to performances where the performer really actually structured a really good recital, and there are some of the moments that I still remember after so long. So I think, like, when you are honest with your audience, when you are honest with yourself, is somehow where it, like, magic starts. And then when you connect with your audience, and it's not easy, of course, but that's like a creative process. That's what you're like doing in the practice room through your collaborations with your friends. Is like you're getting to know yourself through this art, and at the same time try somehow to voice it more through the word. And I think also, like, music and artistry in the world is like can act as a way of activism, or like pointing out different ideas, problems that are happening in the world, social, political, economic situations that are somehow affecting people nowadays, because musicians is somehow here to also say a message, give like a point, or somehow highlight something that is happening in the society. But at the same time, you want to help these people escape from their daily lives. So when they come to a concert, they just also want to be somehow like, you want to have like it's gonna be their highlight of their day, because people are so bombarded all the time by so many information, technology, and all these things. So it's like a way to get them outside of their routine and their hectic schedule, for example.
As musicians, we have a duty, I think, and that is, I think you also mentioned it, being an activist in a way. It's by creating a platform that you then touch people's hearts through what you do. Do you have the chance to do that often enough, or not enough, as much as you would like to do it?
I mean, obviously, you have more space to improve in that, especially like there are so many topics right now, which is sadly, there are so many topics in the world that like somehow they could be better, or like socio-economical, political situations. But I also think that an artist shouldn't be going through that path, you know what I mean? Like seeking how can I change the political situation? But I think an artist should be a figure how to help create change. You know what I mean? It's like, how do I want to build something better? I want to build a world, for example. I want to create or cultivate a world where like people will feel safe and encouraged to voice their opinion, and be equality will be the main aspect of the society. You know what I mean? So I think it's like an artist, their role is to like somehow nourish and highlight all these aspects, but at the same time shouldn't be like, let me tell you what it should happen, but it should be through that inspiration and creative process that will have the same outcome.
No, yeah, I wasn't going into the political aspect. I'm just saying that I actually think that music is at times more powerful than other ways of communications.
Of course.
And I think it has always been that way, if you think about it.
Exactly.
It's a form of expression in many, many, many ways. Exactly. So, you told me that you decided, going back to what you said before, when that professor told you, why are you playing the piano? You could do something else in your life. You told me that you continued in order to prove, in a way, not completely, but prove him wrong, you said. To prove that you can show him that. Is it that? Because the reason I'm asking this is because every musician I've spoken to, not only in this podcast, but in general, and trust me, I've met a lot of musicians. I bet. Most of them are moved by a situation or something in which they had to prove themselves.
I see what you mean.
That
I like
movie.
this question. I like this question, and obviously, it's not. I didn't. I'm not following a career in music because I need to prove to that specific person who was in that master class because he for whatever reason. You know what I mean? So I don't aim to please that person. I'm aiming also to like actually just play music, and I really love music. So through my like what I do, I just wanna somehow like, and by doing by doing what you want to do or what you are heart desires to do, somehow you're like proving them without actually doing anything because you continue the path no matter the difficulties or no matter the ups and downs. You're still in that track and you're going. And even if you like there are and obviously don't take me wrong, I don't judge people who like literally quit, but they're still going in their own path. The path doesn't mean necessarily that it's just one straight line. You can have different lines, different like ideas, different like struggles, but you're still in your own path and you're developing this let's say road that is your story, right? And not I how many people at the beginning they were like, no, you cannot play. My first piano instructor, for example, she was like literally banging my hands. She was like, no, you cannot play the piano. He's like, no, you don't play, you don't play. When I was 4 years old. So it changed, you know what I mean? So there are options. There are different professors. If you don't work well with one professor, you're changing to another until you actually find like a mentor who is gonna be next to you and help you, inspire you, and
The entirety of the way.
exactly.
That's something especially in the public school system where I come from, I never had a mentor that lasted long. I've had good mentors and bad mentors, like everybody.
Of course.
Especially in Italy, most mentors are mean. I don't know how it's.
Sorry to hear that.
But
Oh, that's
I
sad.
think that if I were to have, if I ever had a mentor that lasted longer than maybe a couple of years, it would have actually benefited me more, I think. And you're right. You're extremely right. I probably would have still been practicing the violin 8 hours a day still.
And also, it's like, who has the time to practice 8 hours a day?
That's the problem. Sorry, question.
Yes.
Practice-wise, it's not going to stay too much in this question because people
Yeah.
don't care. But I do, okay?
Okay, tell me.
So, professors, and at least in my case, have this idea, old school idea, you have to practice at least 4 hours and then take a break and then practice another 4 hours. And I always grew up thinking about this idea of having to practice and practice it like there were no tomorrow. But then I met a professor here in America, a teacher, and she told me, whoever told you to practice that much, it's probably that they're just BS, because you can practice in 1 hour, be extremely effective,
I agree.
and don't have to kill yourself.
Well,
Disclaimer.
you're right. Yeah.
Kill yourself as an emotionally. I didn't mean.
No. I mean, like, also physically, you can like literally hurt your hands or your like, or I don't know, different instruments. Like you can physically like make yourself so tired. But you know what? I actually agree with your professor like at the end, because I think like, so there is this idea, and I literally see there are so many pianists that they're like stuck in the practice rooms from like 8 a.m. until like 7 p.m. and they're just there working and working and working. I'm like, okay, well, let's see what we could do. Practicing doesn't necessarily mean that you can do it all the time on your instrument. When you, for example, you're on your way to work, or when you are on your way, I don't know, you to the tea ride and then the train, and you just have your score in front of you. You're mentally practicing as well there if you want to use that time for your craft. But I think also it's important to be a human, because it's like, otherwise you're a machine. If you're practicing for like 12 or like 10 hours every day, then you're becoming a machine. So what I want to say is that there are ways and techniques to practice faster and more efficient. You don't need to spend like 8 hours in the practice room. Of course, you need to practice more than 2 hours, I think, like a day, because that's what you do. Like other people are going to their work from, let's say, from 9 to 5. So they're spending the majority of their time working on their craft. Our job is to perform and play and collaborate. So we're spending that that time that other people are spending in their works to work on our craft. So I think you still need to practice and you need to put the hours in order if you want like to achieve, but not like 10 or 8 hours every day. It's like I think you also like can be inspired and you can learn outside of the practice room. But yeah, that's my idea.
That's called active thinking and
Exactly.
multitasking.
Exactly.
Yeah, I had this talk also in the past with another teacher who told me I was lucky enough to meet him, and he told me you don't have to practice
Right.
4 hours a
Right.
day. Back then it was just 4. Then it doubled to 8 for some reason. He told me, how are you coming here? It was a summer program at Berkeley. I think
I
it was
got
called
you.
Youth and Muse.
Yeah.
But it was like 7 years ago.
Okay.
So I was very young, and I said I take the bus with my mom. I take it in front of Harvard, and then I stop at close to Heist Convention Center.
Right.
And he said, "Well, take your score, read the
Exactly.
score while you're getting here, and trust me, you're gonna have to practice like at least 1 hour less." And I said, "Come on, that's not true. That is not true." I tried it once, and I actually practiced 1 hour with the violin, and that same day I had to play in front of like little jury. It was an internal jury.
Right.
It was
Right.
the teachers of that program. But it was still nerve-wracking for me. But I wasn't as worried as I would have been if I practiced 7 hours before that for some reason.
Actually, there is like an experiment that scientists wanted to really discover how music works, right? In the brain. What is actually happening in musicians' brain when they are. How do they learn music?
If they have a brain.
Well, that's another question. So they took, for example, the famous Renee Fleming, the amazing like soprano.
Yeah.
And they took her brain and they put it under like fMRI and they were trying to
Wait,
understand.
they took her brain?
No, sorry, they
like
took
Einstein and cut it off in pieces and
Okay,
put it in a jar?
That's so sad. Yeah, I know. Okay, we gotta cut this.
No, this is gonna stay in.
No way.
We're trying to make it funny. Come on. All right, sorry. So
No.
they studied her. They studied her.
Okay. Well, they study how her brain. Okay, let me actually phrase it better. So they study how her brain reacts through like what is happening when they are playing. For example, when she's actively singing. So they ask her to sing something in the machine, and then to also sing something to imagine the music in her head. And the brain was more actually stimulated when she had to think about the music, not just actively perform the music.
Huh.
So it's kind of interesting to see that. And yeah, obviously they didn't take her brain, but just
Dissect her alive.
oh my god. That's
No, well, that's actually
that's an important
That
actually.
is wow.
I know.
Because if you think about, okay, let's for example, we're going out of music for a second, but it's still in what you said. Humans have a mind, have a brain,
Right.
and they're studying the human body. So it's basically the mind studying itself, if you think about it.
Oh, of course.
It's a brain. It's like the brain is studying itself. Isn't that
That's nature.
illuminating?
That's nature, and part of nature is like somehow highlighting all these aspects. Like that's why there are people like in cognition. That's why there are people in like music cognition to try to really understand what is happening in musicians' head, what is actually.
But the musicians are not necessarily aware of what is going inside their head. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, exactly. But it's also, you don't know exactly. There is not a specific definition of what is music. What is music?
Oh, that music has a lot of faces.
Exactly. So I
Dozens of
bet on the
definitions.
brain as well has a lot of functions as well, and a lot of like different powers. That's why we like do what we do, or that's why musicians play music, or that's why people want to listen to music, or that's why people are stimulated by this music or by this art. You know what I mean?
Yes, it's the fact that people get stimulated by music is true. Also, on a like curative,
Right.
to
Exactly.
cure people, music is
Somehow
a form of cure.
ameliorates in the development.
I never understood that because most of the times people that are not into the music industry or that are very skeptical like me in the past, we always thought, unless I don't see it happen, I don't believe it. But music does help. It
Of
does help.
course.
I mean,
Of course.
I've went through really, like everybody in this world have some really rough patches in life, and music was really
There for you.
what was there. It was the now. It doesn't mean I always loved music, especially given the the establishment I had to abide to, but the fact that music was one of the few, if not the only thing that I could still turn to
I know.
and just forget about. It's like a drug, but
It
without
is.
having to like sniff it.
Right. No, you're right. You're right. But also, you know what I think, also in general? Like, there are so many things. Like, music helps somehow people with, like, dyslexia. Music, people who don't, like, elderly people who somehow forgot, like, their memories and they want them to bring, forgot, like, things or Alzheimer's or Parkinson's disease and all these kind of things. How can you see a person who technically, practically cannot move, but by listening to music that they already heard before, they're bringing memories back, or they're dancing with the music?
Have you seen the
ballerina with
the
the
ballerina
I
with the
know,
bullshit?
of course. Like, it's insane, It's like something that there is a power that cannot yet be fully explained.
That's the interesting part. There's so much
Exactly.
that we don't know. For example, it's like the sea. We only discovered like 5%, 10% of the entire sea of this planet. Come on.
Yeah, I know.
That's I mean, I believe it. I believe it. I'm just saying that that's
Right.
wow. That's a wow.
Of course, it's like you're trying, and I think like also scientists are trying to understand nature.
But again, it's nature.
Yeah, but we are
nature.
yeah, it's like, but also this process, we like musicians, we are trying to understand something that is coming from our nature, because there are sounds and musical sounds in nature, but we don't know, like, you know what I mean? For example, bird sounds. Many composers inspired and wrote a symphony based on bird sounds. So these are already somehow existing there. You just somehow find like a way to understand what they are and put them in a composition and make sounds. For example, don't you ever try it like before, like having like the violin and like with different settings and all these different ideas, like how to play pizzicato, and you're trying to imitate the sound of like a river or the sound of a bird flying. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's somehow you're trying to understand nature and music through like this process. You know what I mean?
It's learning how to listen nature in a way, which is
It's
that's hard.
It's hard. That's like so hard.
That is so hard. Well, if I think about someone who tried to use nature, like literally the human body, as musical introduction, is Smooth Criminal of Michael Jackson. The heartbeat you listened at the beginning is actually his heartbeat that was recorded.
Wow.
And there's actually footage of this doctor with a recording device on Michael Jackson's chest, and that's just a little like gem of history where it explains, or even like listening to whale sounds as a form of relaxation, or people who have had like a really difficult past.
I know.
It helps for some reason. It helps.
Yeah, this is like the little sparkles that I get to understand yet.
But fully. It works.
Of course it works. We
still get to have the perks of it working, even though we don't know how it works.
Exactly. It's like, it's just part of there. Yeah. But I know exactly what you mean.
That is.
But that's a process. That's a creative process of like being in this field. It's like you get to experience different like aspects of it.
Yes. Wow. Oh my God.
Look at that. The conversation turned into like nature and then trying to understand.
Oh, trust me, our conversations can turn into anything.
That's nice.
Literally anything.
That's really a deep, nice conversation. So.
All right. So, I have something I want to show you.
Oh, okay. What is that?
And I want you to talk to me about it.
Oh, wow. Oh, where did you find that?
I have no clue.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I do my research.
Well, so this one is like a picture of me. Like, I think I was probably like, maybe I was like 6 or 7. Like, I was a baby, as you can see. Mm-hmm. I don't look like the same now. But no, I was probably 6, 7. I had my first piano exam. Oh. And as you can see, I'm wearing, like, the picture is black and white, but my dress was like pink. And I did my hair on a ponytail. I put a little rose on my head. I was just like literally going like I'm gonna go on a princess wedding. So my mom, she was like, "Oh, it's your first exam. Let's go and be like." You know what? I wasn't feeling competitive or I was gonna be judged. I was feeling that I'm gonna just go and play the music that I was working on with my teacher, and I'm just gonna share what I learned.
You were not nervous.
No, I was
not a bit.
in my first exam. I not at all actually, because I had it in my head as a way that I'm gonna just show what I played a little bit, you know. And so I played my pieces. I didn't care. I was wearing this fancy dress that I was so excited about. So it was kind of funny.
How old were you exactly?
I think I was like probably 7 here. 7, I think so. Yeah.
Aww.
And then my mom was like, since you're wearing a nice dress, I took off from school a little bit because usually it was part of Royal Academy of Music. So the exams were like somehow from there. And then the examination was in Cyprus though. So my mom was like, do you want to go? We can take you pictures. So we went to this studio. Actually, it's my cousin's studio. And we took some pictures to remember that memory. Yeah, it's kind of nice.
Oh, so that wasn't in the venue place. It was
it was
in
like,
an actual studio.
Exactly. Like, look at how fancy. But you know, these kind of things, this is what you remember, right? The little memories. And yeah, I also think that back then I was more like, you know, I didn't know that I was going to follow a career in music. So
you're just having fun
I just went, I wear a nice dress, I just played music, and then I left, you know? And I think this is how somehow sometimes we are overthinking. In general, like musicians are overthinking about like, oh wow, I need to like in case I miss any wrong note, it's gonna be the end of the world. People are gonna criticize.
That's what
which is like that's why you're trying to be super practical and you're losing the point. It's like you're stuck watching a tree and you miss the forest somehow, you know. So it's like, I don't know. I think we should be more like, we should enjoy music more, and this is what I'm trying to say to my students. Above all, we play music. No matter how advanced you want to become, you play music. Like, it's a big thing, you know?
You like teaching?
I love teaching.
Really?
Yeah, I actually do. I'm not the kind of musicians that are like, oh, I just don't want to teach. I just want to perform. I literally love teaching, and I'm learning a lot from my students as well.
So yeah, that's another important topic. We learn from people who maybe even know less than us.
You cannot imagine.
That's another thing we cannot explain, but it works.
I know. I had, for example, one student of mine. She's like literally, I think she's like 7 years old. And she said to me, you know, like my age, exactly. She said to me, you know what, teacher, I really love the idea about having the notes flowed on these 5 lines, the system of the music. I have this idea of flowing. And they are there because there is silence in between them. Can you imagine that? Like, I had that said by like a 7-year-old like little girl, and I was just like thinking about it, like, wow, that's that's a really deep thought, you know, and deep process. So it's like sometimes what I want to say is that sometimes you have this talent which is developed by nurturing it and working on your craft and becoming the best version you can. But at the same time, I believe that's something part of the nature. That's part of it's both nature and nurture. So it's like you need, in order, if you have friends at college, like I did my undergrad at Boston Conservatory at Berkeley, and now I'm doing my master's at Longis School of Music. So in back my undergrad, I have students that they were literally very talented, and then when I see them now for their masters, they decided not to. They decided not to follow that. So I mean, what I want to say is that you can be talented, but at the same time, you need to put the work down. You need to.
Yeah, nature is not enough.
It's not enough. It's like if being talented is like a thing that will help you,
it will
but
boost you up, but you cannot just
exactly. It's like you need to. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So we're almost at the end. What we do here at the end usually is I tell you a question that the previous person left for you without telling you who that person is.
I love that.
And I'll try to tell you the question the best way possible because it's a very long question and I have it in my head. So
wow.
I'm gonna translate it in a
Let's see
more.
What you're gonna ask me.
I'm gonna translate it in a more easy version of it.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna ask you to do the same. Leave a question for the next person looking at that camera.
Sounds a plan.
All right. So the question is, what do you stand for? What do you fight for in life in general? Not necessarily in music, but could be also in music.
But I love this question. I really love
Oh,
this
girl,
question.
we have the best question.
I
Oh
really
my
love this question.
god.
It's well thought about, and I like it.
Hell yeah.
So, well, well, I think like what I stand for. There are so many things, but I think one of the most important things is my values. And when I say values, is that um, it's also what it's above all. It's respect, and it's kind of a heavy word, and people don't pay it so seriously. But if you respect yourself, if you respect your work, if you respect your like professional environment, if you respect your friends and your relationships and all these things, you are a person who somehow like gets to connect more with others because you really care and you really invest time in whatever you're doing. Get to know your friends, getting to know your partner, getting to know your like music, getting to actually really respect that score, that the music score that you had in front of you. It's not my composition. When you write your piece, you can do whatever you want. But when you have like a composition written by a person who passed away a couple of like centuries ago, you need to respect what that person wrote. So what I want to say is that respect the little puzzles that you put together, and then somehow you become the person you are right now. You also it's very hard because there are like I think under the word respect there are other different values that are somehow embedded. For example, through respect you can have like care, quality, inclusion, justice, all these kind of things. You know what I mean? So if you respect your society, if you respect who you are, if you respect the environment, if you respect like what you're trying to create in this world, then somehow where you're cultivating a change by being the best version of who you want to become, not who you just imagine to become. There are so many people that they're saying, oh, I really want to do better. I really want to be that person. I really like the career of that person. But why do you spend time trying to get to know these people more? Like you're investing so much time to your fans and to the people that you care, but you're not investing time to yourself. You know, you're investing more time to see what, for example, famous celebrities are wearing, so small like things, but you're not investing time to understand how can I actively become who I want to become? How can I actively cultivate change? And I think, you know, there are so many people that they say, well, it's very hard to build a better world. Like, I cannot see this coming. But it's technically not that hard because imagine yourself as a cell of the society, right? Of a body of the society. If a cell of the body changes, the whole community changes. The whole world somehow is going to be inspired. And it starts from really small settings that somehow are going to be developed in a different, like, for example, if you are at school, then you, by being like the cell that somehow changes yourself, then you inspire others to follow your example. And then this outside of school is going to go to your community, and outside of your community is going to go to the world. So you know what I mean? It's like somehow you're building something bigger, but you just need to understand that you have to start first by changing yourself. And that's a big thing. But I think this is what I stand for. Like, be respectful to myself, to what I do, to others, and somehow try to at least leave a nice memory of when I meet someone through collaboration or through a composition of a piece or through a performance. It's like I'm trying to somehow work on it. And trust me, it's so easy to talk about it, but it's not that easy to do it in action. So I think it's like a constant thing that you should be aware to work on a daily basis.
There's a form of speech in Italian that says, tradire e il fare ci sta di mezzo il mare.
Which means?
Which means between saying it and doing it in the middle, there's the ocean.
You're right.
And I think that is true in most cases.
But isn't it fascinating? I think people are somehow scared about obstacles or about like what is gonna happen next or well, I cannot swim this ocean, right? Because you said between like from the point
saying
A
it
to
and
point
doing
B.
it, there's the ocean.
Exactly. But I think also it's hard. But it's one say to constantly say it's hard. But by just saying that is not gonna change the mindset. By just actively doing it is gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna try one day a little more,
One step at a
a
time.
little more,
You
a
don't
little
have
more,
to
and then
do
you
big
gradually
jumps.
cross the
Yeah.
ocean without realizing. So yeah.
All right. Well, now it's your turn to ask a question. Looking at that camera over
Okay.
there.
So the next, like, let's say guest, I would like to ask them. Let me actually think about it for 2 seconds.
Take all the time you need.
What defines you as an artist, and how did you decide to? Why and how did you decide to follow this specific career? Because it's hard. Define, like, what defines an artist? So let's see where is gonna be next. Oh, good luck.
All right. Well, I think that's a wrap.